It won't. The levels will stay the same. Now, so what other people are going to tell me is, well, the Antarctica is actually over land. So when all that water melts, it's going to go into the ocean and raise the sea levels, right? Well, you're assuming that Antarctica ice is melting in the first place. I found a story on Fox News. This stuff is easy to find, by the way. And this is actually from April. But it reports, and this is right after the winter, in the spring, Antarctic ice growing, not shrinking. And this is the time of the year where it should be shrinking a little bit anyway. Well, actually, no. Never mind. Forget that last name. Report, Antarctic ice growing, not shrinking. Ice is expanding in much of Antarctica, contrary to the widespread public belief that global warming is melting the continental ice cap. The results of ice core drilling and sea ice monitoring indicate that there is no large-scale melting of ice over most of Antarctica, although experts are concerned at ice losses on the continent's western coast. Antarctica has 90% of the Earth's ice and 80% of its fresh water, the Australian reports. Extensive melting of the Antarctic ice sheets would be required to raise sea levels substantially, and ice is melting in parts of West Antarctica. The destabilization of the Wilkins ice shelf generated international headlines this month, back in April. However, this picture is notice how it created all of this newsworthiness about one part of it melting, but they forgot to mention, however, that in the other side of Antarctica, the ice is growing. East Antarctica is 4 times the size of West Antarctica, and parts of it are cooling. The Scientific Community on Antarctic Research report prepared for last week's meeting on Antarctic Treaty Nations in Washington noted that the South Pole has shown significant cooling in recent decades. Australia Antarctic Division Glaciology Program head Ian Allison said sea ice losses in West Antarctica over the past 30 years had been more than offset by increases in the Ross Sea region, just one sector of East Antarctica. So notice how most of us didn't hear that. We all hear about it shrinking in one part of Antarctica, but it's more than offset by the growing in the other part of Antarctica. The point is the climate is constantly changing. The point is at some places it will grow, some places it will shrink due to sunspot activity and due to the fact that the climate is constantly changing. It's constantly redistributing cool and warm temperatures throughout the entire planet. That's what the climate does. It never stays static, ever. So when you read a part about so we don't have to worry about the sea levels rising because actually the ice in Antarctica is growing. But they forgot to mention that little part in the other story. And in April, I didn't hear about it. Most of what I heard was about how parts of it are shrinking. The fact is, the debate is not over, as I've said many times in this program. The fact is, science is not settled. The fact is that many climatologists believe that the global warming thing is a hoax. That it was something that came up in the 80s that has been greatly exaggerated for political purposes. And yet now they want to pass a climate cap and trade legislation which will affect the economy, all for something that they're not even sure is true. All despite the fact that ice in Antarctica is growing. Just thought I'd share that with you. Well, when I get back, I'm going to talk a little bit about the swine flu. Yes, I know, the swine flu. We just can't hear enough of that. Well, I'm going to try to make it a little more interesting, because I'm sure you're kind of sick about hearing all the panic of the swine flu. You are listening to the Michael Yaffee program, WNSC.UCF.edu online radio. You're listening to the Michael Yaffee program, WNSC.UCF.edu online radio. I thank you guys for joining me today. And you know, I'm sort of sick of hearing about the swine flu, or now we have to call it the H1N1 virus. And I want to lighten things up a little bit. You know, it sounds scary, swine flu. Sounds really scary. So I thought it'd be cool and hip, you know, if I didn't call it swine flu. I want to be hip. I want to get the young audience. So I'm going to call it the Swizzle Flizzle. That's right, for Rizzle, I'm going to call it the Swizzle Flizzle. And I have a story here from the Wall Street Journal. So where it says Swizzle Flizzle, where it says swine flu, I'm going to say Swizzle Flizzle. And where it says H1N1, I'm going to say Hizzle Nizzle. And where it says vaccines, I'm going to say Vizzle. So I got to be cool. I got to get the right lingo. 2 Flizzle Vizzles. Lots of questions. The annual ritual of feeding off the flizzle is more complicated this fall as Americans weigh getting 2 Vizzles. The Vizzle to fight seasonal flizzle is already widely available, although some areas have reported supply shortages and delays. But a new Vizzle to protect against the Vizzle virus. No, Vizzle's vaccine, not virus. I totally messed that up. Hizzle virus, commonly known as the Swizzle Flizzle, is just starting to make its way to schools, public health departments, and doctors' offices. Because of an initial limited supply, the first doses of the Swizzle Flizzle Vizzle are earmarked for people with a high risk of getting serious complications from the Swizzle Flizzle, and for those at risk of spreading the illness to them. States have ordered about 8 million doses of the Hizzle Nizzle Vizzle so far, with the potential for up to 250 million total doses, depending on demand, says Tom Skinner, spokesman for the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta. See, it doesn't sound so bad when you say Swizzle Flizzle. You mean it almost sounds like, one of your dizzles. Public health officials say everyone who wants a Swizzle Flizzle Vizzle eventually will be able to get a free one. But many people are still wondering if they need to get one or both of the Vizzles. About 88% of the U.S. population falls into a group that the CDC recommends receive the seasonal Flizzle Vizzle. About half of the population fits into a category deemed a high priority for the Swizzle Flizzle Vizzle. While some cases of the Flizzle involved only several days of misery, others go on to become life-threatening or even fatal. Since the Swizzle Flizzle emerged in the U.S. in April, more than 800 people with symptoms have died, including 28 pregnant women and 86 children, according to the CDC. Most of those children had an underlying condition, but 20% to 30% of them were otherwise healthy. The seasonal Flizzle sends an average of 200,000 Americans to the hospital each year, and 36,000 of them die, according to the CDC. So basically, we have the Swizzle Flizzle and the regular Flizzle both fighting over street cred in people's bodies. And because of that, we need more Vizzles, 2 different kinds of Vizzles, and people are confused if they should get a Swizzle Flizzle Vizzle or just a regular Flizzle Vizzle or both. Yeah, that's for Rizzle. Dizzle. You were listening to the Michael Yaffee program. I thank you guys for listening so much. I will be here this Saturday. I wasn't here last Saturday. I will be here Saturday. If you want to send me an email, michael.yaffee@ucf.edu. I will be posting the show on YouTube and Facebook. I thank you guys for listening so much. I might go to Wing Shack. My buddy Jeff invited me to go there. I might go. Wings are pretty good. I'm not sick like I was last week. I don't know. I don't even know what game's on. You were listening to the Michael Yaffee program, WNSC.UCF.edu, online radio. Thanks for listening, my dizzles. For Rizzle.